We're in chapter 6. We're down to, we finished with 12 and 15, and it's a description of a troublemaker or a villain. He has a corrupt mouth. He winks maliciously with his eyes and signals with his feet. He's constantly leading you off in the wrong direction. Motions with his fingers. Come on over to my side of the table. Plots evil, deceit in his heart. Stirs up conflict. Disaster will overtake him in an instant. He will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. Perhaps not on this earth, but eventually at the judgment throne, his judgment will be instantaneous. And when I read through that, did a name pop in your head? Did you think of someone? I see some grins. You know somebody like this, don't you? Because it's a mean, mean world that we live in. And it doesn't like us much because we shine light on things that they do not want to see. And just our presence, just a presence makes a difference, because when we're present, Jesus is present. An old story about an old man that worked across the street from the church, and every day he would walk in about 12:30, and we'd walk up the altar, and he'd stand there for a minute and look at the cross, and he'd turn around and walk out. And so they had a new preacher, and he noticed this. He'd hear the door open, he'd see the guy walk up in front. He'd be up there 2 or 3 minutes, and he'd walk out. And so one day he walked out, and he says, George, he said, is there something that you'd like for me to pray for? Are you having a problem? I notice every day you come in. He said, oh, no. He said, I finished my lunch about 12:30, and it's just across the street, so I walk up and I look up at the cross, and I just say, Jesus, I'm here. And then I go back to work. And he was a man of few words, and didn't say much, but was a regular attender of the church, and the pastor noticed it. About 5 years later, George ends up in the hospital, and the pastor went to visit him, and he was in there about a week. And so about the 3rd or 4th day he was in, and the pastor said, George, what are you doing to these nurses? George said, well, I'm not doing anything to these nurses. He said, well, I'm in the hospital a lot. He said, normally they're a little grumpy, and they're kind of, but since you came into the hospital, they're happy, and they've got a great attitude, and they greet me, and you must be doing something. And George said, no, Pastor, he said, that's Jesus. He said, about 12:30 every day, I hear the soft sound of sandaled feet, and he walks up to the foot of my bed, and he says, George, I'm here. Just because we walk into a room with Jesus in our heart, it makes a difference to the whole room. I can't tell you how many times I walked into a barber shop and they'd be telling a joke, and I'd walk in and they wouldn't finish the joke. Everybody would get quiet. And the language changes. If they know me, the language changes. And it's not me. I'm not perfect. I have a temper, just like everybody else. But there's something about Jesus being in me that changes the whole countenance of the entire room. So, 16 through 19.
There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a man who stirs up dissension among brothers.
All right. Now, as we go through these, I want you to know it starts out with the least offensive and ends up with the most offensive. They are in order of priority. This list is. Because you can go other places and it'll talk about the exact same list, and it gets into more detail, and one actually leads to the other. Okay? How do most sins start? Oh, before we get to that, there are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Are we talking about 7 things? Are we talking about 6 things? Or are we talking about 13 things?
I was wondering the same thing.
Great, good question. Good question.
It's a good
What do you think?
out of answering it too. I like that.
What do you think?
I think it's 7.
I got the answer, so.
Okay.
Huh?
I think it's 7.
Okay, we got 7. We got 1 for 7. Do I hear 6? Anybody want to give me 6? Okay, how about 13? Huh? It's 7. And it's the Bible. The Bible does this very, very, very often. It's its way of emphasizing the number. If I say to you, there's half a dozen things that'll get you in trouble. It's different than if I say to you, there are 6 things that get you in trouble. There's even 7 that'll get you in trouble. And it puts emphasis on the numbers. So you don't just, the 10 Commandments. We kind of just slough it off. There are 10 Commandments, but this is the author's way of saying these 7 things are really important. And there's 6 you got to be careful of, and there's even 7 you got to be careful. All right, potty eyes. How do most sins start?
Judging others, looking down on others.
Say again?
Judging other people, looking at other people.
Okay.
And
Which of the 5 senses? You're
Eyes.
right. Not
Looking.
bad. But how do most sins start?
Yes, your eyes.
Hmm?
Looking.
Yeah, I see. You see a handsome guy or a pretty girl, and Satan plants a thought in your mind. You see a new car, and you got an old junker, and you think, oh, that'd be nice. You see a new fly rod at Cabela's, and I've got 6, but boy, that's a beauty. And, envy starts that way. The eyes start a lot of sins. They make the first suggestion. You see them, and then the process begins. A lying tongue. So it goes from vision to speaking. Okay. What's the first lie you tell? Let's say if envy is the sin that you're being led into. Who's the first person you lie to?
Yourself.
Yourself. I see Jennifer's new van, and I've got a 2003, and it's got 300,000 miles on it. There's rust around the doors, and I say, boy, I need a new van too. Do I really need a new van? Or do I want a new van? Okay. And do I want a better one than Jennifer's got, or do I just want one like hers? Okay. Now I want a better one. I want that's how envy draws you in. But the first person you lie to is yourself. And there's a lot of the sins. If you go through the list of sins, there's a lot of the sins. The first lie you tell is to yourself. You're convincing yourself that it's okay to do that thing. Amen? You're not convincing Josh it's okay to do that thing. He's not even there. Who are you trying to talk into it? Why do we ever try to talk our way out of it? You ever noticed we don't do that until we're sorry we did it? And then it's like, oh, woe is me, why'd I do that? But we instantly try to talk our way into it. We try to justify it. We try to rectify it. We try to make it just. I remember when they were doing the casino here in town. Do you remember reading the papers? It's going to save our society. It's going to restore the glory of the valley. They used all these religious terms to whitewash it into something that was going to save us, going to redeem our economy. They went to the Bible and drug out all these religious words and said, it's going to do this good stuff for us. Kindle turned off. Okay. And we do that too. They did it and we do it, and we come up with all kind of neat ways. And then after your eyes see it and your tongue justifies it, what happens next? Action. It says hands, but you put it into action. You reach for it, or you walk toward it, or you start working out a way to have it your own way, to have that thing that Satan is tempting you with. Okay? So action comes next. A heart that devises evil schemes. Okay? What happens with this transition? Where are we with the first three?
Physical,
Physical. Where are we with the fourth one?
spiritual.
Spiritual. Heart. Remember, heart always refers to the spirit. Okay? So then it becomes spiritual. And then it becomes sin. You know, the first three can just be temptation. But once it becomes spiritual, or once it becomes part of us, then it becomes sin. Okay? And so the heart that devises evil schemes, and feet that are quick to rush into evil. Once the scheme is devised, well, remember what Jesus said? Even if you've thought it, you've done it, you're guilty. Remember that verse in the New Testament? Well, there's a verse in the New Testament where somebody was trying to talk his way out of the predicament he was in, and Jesus looked at him and said, even if you've thought it, you've done it. Now, a lot of times temptation comes with a thought, but temptation isn't sin. When the thought first comes, you have to deal with it. If you let it become spiritual or become part of your heart, that's when it becomes sin. The moment you decide to work it out and have that thing you want, at that moment you have sinned.
But it only takes about 1 second most of the time to go from 1 to 4.
Yeah,
Boom.
to go from
See
4
it
to
and it's already you're thinking about it.
I don't know from 1 to 4, but I know from 4 to 5 it takes about 1 second. You know, sometimes I will argue with myself and debate something for days and days and days. And, you know, if I'm angry, if somebody makes me angry and it's an instant response, like Josh says, I can go from 1 to 4 in about a half a heartbeat. But a lot of times it's this debate that's going on inside my head. Well, you know, I really don't have the money for that. But what if my wife gets in an accident on the way to Indy and she has to walk in sub-zero weather, like we have to walk in sub-zero weather almost every day. And well, you know, for my wife, I really should get the new thing. Right? No, it's not for my wife. It's because I want one. And I want one because Jennifer got one. And who is Jennifer to have one if I can't have one, you know?
Picking on me today.
It's a human thing. You tired of me picking on you? Okay.
Matt's rubbing off on it.
I say Matt's not here. You're over there. You know, I think it's that area.
So feet that rush to evil. As soon as I have devised the wicked scheme, then the sin has taken precedence, and then it's easy to move on. Like Josh said, it can happen in a heartbeat. All right. A false witness who pours out lies. Can you be a false witness and not pour out lies? What's the definition of false witness?
Not you don't. As I say, you don't.
You're a liar. You know? And it's sort of a double emphasis there. It says a false witness, and then it explains what a false witness is that pours out lies. And it's kind of a, you know, he makes the statement, and then it's kind of like he's pointing his finger at the reader. Okay? And a person who stirs up conflict in the community. Now, which one does God detest most? That one. Why? Why is that the most grievous one? It and the one above it is the second most grievous one. Why are those two the most grievous?
Because when you do those things and start getting a bunch of other people upset, you also are making them sin.
Exactly. Not only am I destroying myself at this point, I'm destroying all of you. If I come in here and teach falsely and ask you to drink the Kool-Aid, it's not just my sin anymore. Okay? It's going to be your life that's destroyed, and it's going to be you that's led astray. And then it may carry over to your children and to people at work. Because if I tell you, if you really trust me to be your teacher, and you really try to implement some of the things we talk about, and I'm teaching you falsely, I'm not only going to answer for my actions, I'm going to also answer for your actions to some extent, because I was the catalyst that made you do it. That doesn't leave you off the hook. You should realize that I'm teaching falsely, because you should be studying the Bible and you should know the Word. How 900 people drank the Kool-Aid without question is beyond, and gave it to their kids, is beyond me, but I can tell you this much: they were not studying their Bible. They were taking Jim Jones's word for it. Don't take my word for it. I would never intentionally lead you astray. And that's exactly what Jim Jones said to them. Okay? And it could be that, there are, I don't think they're earth-shaking things, but there are things that I believed when I was 30 that I believe differently today because I've matured. And I look back on it and I think, boy, I was wrong. And I taught a Sunday school class back then too. And sometimes I wonder, how far did they take that? Because I have suddenly realized I was wrong, and I can't go back and talk to them. They're dead, some of them. Some of them moved to someplace else, and I don't know where they're at. I can't call them up. I think the Holy Spirit, if I have an honest heart, I think the Holy Spirit tempers that somehow. He controls it in some ways. But if I'm a Jim Jones, he can't. But even if with the best of intentions, sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you just, so 19 is the most important because it's not personal anymore. It's in the community. It's in the church. It's in the Sunday school class. And not only am I destroying my life, but I'm also potentially destroying your life if you follow after my teaching. Okay?
A gossiper would be a big one right there too, wouldn't it?
Yep, because it is destroying other people's lives. Mm-hmm. Can you think of any scenario where gossip improved anything? If it did, it wouldn't be called gossip.
Well, look how many people.
It would be called edification. It would be called encouragement. It wouldn't be called gossip. What?
Look how many people do
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many people say, well, I just wanted you to know so that you don't fall, something. I mean, it's always for your benefit.
it. But people are never worried about, they're always worried about what everybody else is doing, Yep.
That's a good point, and it brings up a good question. Why do people gossip? Now, there's probably more than one answer, but what is the big one?
Self-esteem. Self-esteem. They have low self-esteem about themselves.
That's a good call. I've got two choices in life. I can pull myself up to your level, or I can pull you down to mine. It's a whole lot easier to pull you down to mine and discredit you than it is to improve myself. And most really chronic gossips that I've known would not ever admit they'd made a mistake. think about that person that just popped into your head that you know, who's always tearing you down. One popped in, right? Okay. Have you ever heard them say, you know, when I was 30, I made a mistake? Have you ever heard them say that? They are constantly trying to discredit you so they don't have to deal with their own guilt. I used to have a sign in my office. I used to have a lot of signs. I love this. And one of them was, and this isn't exact, I can't remember the exact wording, it's probably cooler than this. It said, the curse of the liar is not that he can't believe you, but, oh, the curse of the liar is not. The curse of the liar is, let me think about it.
And that is called old age.
20 through 24. We're gonna scoot through this because he's just looking at his son and saying, he's reinforcing it for 3 times now.
My son, keep your father's commands and do not forsake your mother's teaching. Bind them upon your heart forever, fasten them around your neck. When you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will speak to you. For these commands are a lamp, this teaching is a light, and the corrections of discipline are the way of life, way to life, keeping you from the immoral women, from the smooth tongue of the wayward wife.
Okay. All right. How many times has he addressed adultery to his son at this point in Proverbs?
Many.
What?
At least 3, right? Is it?
At least 3, and I believe it's 4. I believe it's 4. But it's 3 for sure. It's 3 in the last 2 chapters. Okay? He does it a little different this time. Verse 20. What's different from
He's talking about his mother.
Yeah, he brings the mother into it. He says, keep your father's command. And it's kind of like, and if you can't